All right, welcome to field orientation, starting our fall 22 semester. We're so excited for the semester to start. We like this Olelo No'eau, Makahana Kahike, and Working One Learns. This is really what field work is all about. So we put our hands to practice and actually do what we're learning in the classroom in our field sites. And we are Wendy, Robin, and Amy, your field coordinators. And we have field liaisons helping us this year as we did last year. David, Sonia, Jillian help with our field integration seminars and some supervision. Teresa helps with our Guam placements, and we have actually someone else new coming on board, Erica, who will also be helping with our field integration seminars and some remote field supervision. Remember, although these wonderful liaisons are helping us with the classroom parts, Wendy, Robin, and I are still your field coordinators. We help with your placements and oversee kind of the whole field experience for each of you. And our Thompson School, Department of Social Work, we still have our interim dean in place, Dr. Tatine Santel. She is from the Office of Public Health, and she's been a wonderful interim dean for us. We do have the dean search happening. So that is, the job is posted, and hopefully we'll have a permanent dean in soon. Teresa Kreif is our assistant to the dean, and in our department, Dr. Guo is our department chair, and she is also our PhD chair. Dr. Stotzer is our chair for the MSW program, and Dr. D'Amatos is our BSW chair. And for those of you who know him, give him a congratulations. He just got his PhD this past spring, so we're so happy for him. He is now Dr. D'Amatos. And here are a few stats. So the number of students varies per year, and it's perfectly normal. These total numbers reflect our numbers of students we have in the BSW and MSW programs. We dipped a little bit in the pandemic, then really in 21-22, it shot up a bit. People were ready to come back and get their education. This year, it looks a little lower, but remember, this is not counting our junior cohort from the undergraduate program that will be starting in the spring. So it's actually going to look kind of like it did last year, maybe even a little more. And we're so happy because there's such a great need for social work professionals in the community. Okay, so how many hours have social work students completed collectively in the spring semester? We like looking at these numbers because it gives us kind of a bigger picture of what's happening. So if we look just at the spring 22 semester, a total of over 60,000 hours of field work were provided by our field students. This counts everybody, undergraduate and graduate students in all areas, administrative, direct client services, all across the board. And then we even have a bunch, we wanted to include the summer numbers too, because although it's a little smaller, it still adds to our overall view of all the great hours of field work that our students do. So over the summer, we had some students and they did about 7,500 hours. Yay, field students, getting their education and also helping agencies in the community. Okay, terminology. Wendy, am I doing this part? I don't remember.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are? I am. Okay. Sorry. So as most of you know, we have the field instructor and we have the site supervisor. We like to review these definitions because it's easy to get them mixed up, and both for students and for people in the field. So the field instructor is the person with an MSW degree and 2 years post-degree experience. They provide the oversight to the student. They give the final approval on the hours and evaluations and final grading. They are non-compensated adjunct faculty, and they're on record as the official field instructor for the student. The site supervisor is kind of a fluid position. Not everybody has one. It really depends on the field site and the field instructor and how it's all kind of structured. There's no degree or experience requirement. It's really up to the field instructor, whether they have one or not, to help out with the student. It's the person that may, in most cases, they're on site with the student, and maybe the field instructor is at a different office or even not even working for the agency. So the site supervisor gives the day-to-day feedback and coaching and mentoring And then they also do the first swipe or the first draft at the midterm and final evaluations before it goes on to the field instructor. So it's a multiple step process, but we have found these are often great partnerships and give opportunities to have students placed at a variety of sites across the state and Guam. All right, competencies and behaviors.
Yes, thank you, Amy. So we often refer to field education as the signature pedagogy of getting your degree in social work. And what this means is that field education is really at the core, where the rubber meets the road, where everything comes together for the student. So the intent of field education is to integrate theory to practice, practice to theory, and getting that guidance throughout at a field site. So this is a definition that has been put out by the Council on Social Work Education that we reference in regards to field. Next slide, please. So social work education is very much grounded on this framework of competencies and behaviors. Competency 1 through 9 are competencies that every student at all accredited university or program of social work has to meet. They have to be able to demonstrate ethical and professional behavior in the practice, engaging in diversity, advancing human rights, understanding what social justice means, what economic justice means to the communities that they work with, engaging in practice-informed research and research-informed practice, evidence-based practice, right? We often talk about that. Engaging in policy, understanding what's happening at the big picture policy level and how it trickles down and affects their clients at the community level and individual level. Engaging at all levels, individuals, families, groups, organizations, and community, assessing, intervening, and finally evaluating practice with the individuals, right? So that's what we is seen as a very well-rounded social work student that is able to get exposure and learn in all those areas. The 10th competency is very unique to the Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health and our Department of Social Work specifically, which is to engage, honor, and respect Indigenous culture towards decolonized professional practice. This is also included in the students' learning portfolio. They get evaluated on this 10th competency, and it's something that we want the students to also have exposure to, discussions and understanding who they are and the communities that they work with. Next slide. We also have an expectations of students to carry out cognitive and affective processes. This is something that has always been in practice, but in the 2022 EPAS, this is something that's very clearly outlined. It is a learning objective for our students that are in practice. This includes critical thinking, understanding how to problem solve, how to find information, how to consult information, and really being intentional in their learning, effective reactions, are ways in which our emotions influence our thinking and our behavior. So how do we, how does is the student able to, or is at a level of competency where they can differentiate their emotions and not let that get in the way of their judgment calls or decisions and consultations with their supervisor, and how are they processing those parts of their work. Having the capacity to exercise judgment, right, and discerning different forms of opinion and feedback, and how to have that emotional intelligence, if you will, to be a well-rounded, reflective practitioner in their work. So you're going to see us talking about this more in the classroom and in having our field instructors emphasize this aspect of the work. So when we talk about competency attainment, we see it in 3 phases. At the beginning of placements, we expect students to be in the emerging phase, to kind of get their feet wet, to become oriented to the agency, to the mission and vision of the goals. What is their role? What are the expectations, right? At mid-placement, we expect the student to be developing and approaching towards those competency areas and behaviors that we outlined previously. By the end of the placement, we expect the student to be consistently demonstrating a level of competence in their practice, to eventually reach full competence by the end of their generalist year or by the end of their specialist year. So as you can see, we do see this learning as a progression, and we want to emphasize this to students, especially who are starting off in field, that we don't expect you to have it all in the first semester. And then Amy's going to walk us through evaluation and grading. What does that look like for a student and a supervisor?
Thanks, Cindy. So as many of you know, the midterm and final evaluations happen every semester for every student in field placement. And it's a time to get feedback, to learn, to get a taste of like how we're doing, to measure our progress towards competency. So the student first does their self-evaluation. They rank themselves 1 through 5 on each of the behaviors of each of the 10 competencies. They include comments and evidence in the comment box in Exact, describing like, this is what I did in regards to assessment. This is what I did in regards to policy or whatever the behavior is. And our goal is by the end of the placement. So for BSWs, it's by the end of your 491 course. For generalist, MSW is by the end of your 691 and 791 for our specialist year students. So we went full competency and attainment by the end of placement. And anything that, all the feedback, the comments, the grading that happens at the midterm and the final should be seen as documentation. It should not be seen as surprise information. So this is part of what we go over with field instructors and site supervisors in training, that feedback should be given to the student on a weekly basis or whatever the method is for feedback and learning. We don't want to get to the end of the semester and say, hey, surprise, you're not doing so great on these 3 competencies, so your grade is therefore lower. We don't want that to happen. The feedback should be happening all the time. Grading categories are the 6 categories here, and these are these help us determine the actual grades. We separate out competency attainment from grading because they are 2 different things, and these are the categories of really becoming the grading for the course and how we are doing in our professionalism. Learning and growth is a big part of being a student. Are we open to learning, and our basic practice skills of becoming a social worker and all that good stuff. Okay. Passing grades. So generalist students, BSW and first year MSW must receive a C or higher to continue to the next field course. Specialist year students must receive a B- or higher in order to continue and then also graduate in their field courses. So you must have a passing grade in order to complete the course. If you don't, that means taking the class over again. All right, supervision.
I can cover supervision. So supervision is defined as a formal, regularly scheduled, and consistent occurring opportunity for the student to meet with his or her field instructor to sit down and check in. How are they doing? What are they learning? How are they processing all of this? What might be some struggling areas? How would they, approach the work differently? It can be either individual supervision or group supervision. Our field manual references a best practice of 1 hour of supervision for every 16 hours in the field. That's kind of what we're striving for. And so sometimes the field instructor and the student work very close together, and it's a little more ad hoc check-ins here and there. Other times, maybe they'll go a couple weeks without supervision, and it's understood that the work environment ebbs and flows, but collectively, we always want to strive for at least 1 hour of undisrupted time to be able to mentor that student, either in group or individually. And then we're also going to schedule site visits throughout the academic year. We are going to strive to visit at least once in that whole field placement. So it's a 2-semester field placement, so 1 full academic year. If we don't visit you in the fall, we'll aim to visit you in the spring. Site visits may or may not be in person. Most of them will likely be virtual, either held by Robin, Amy, Wendy, myself, Sonia, Jillian, or David. So either one of your field coordinators or one of your field liaisons will be scheduling with you a site visit. The site visit is a chance to check in, to really just kind of celebrate the work that the student is doing. If there's any areas where the student is struggling, or if there's areas of concern, that's also a great time to address any of those issues. While we reach out and schedule, we'll have the students coordinate with us to schedule the site visit. The site and the student can request a site visit at any time, so you don't have to wait until we are in site visit time, which usually happens around right after midterm evaluation, when we start reaching out for site visits. And then Amy is going to take us into our exact field platform.
Thanks, Wendy. So Exact is our wonderful platform that we use to manage all things field. And I know that some of us have a love-hate relationship with it, but it is what we have for now, and it really does help us manage everything the best we can. So everything is basically in Exact. Our timesheets, our learning portfolio, which contains the objectives at the start of the semester, the midterm and final evaluations. It also has the supervision agreement. For students, it is a log-on system. So students all have a login, name and password, logging into the system, and you can find all your things in there that way. Field instructors and site supervisors have no login. It is a link-based system for you. Anytime the student does something that needs your approval, that needs your review, you will get an email. So make sure you add that standard email address from Exact into your contact list so that it doesn't end up in your spam folder. Sometimes that happens when we have new people come on. All right, so all the documents in Exact. We talked about the supervision agreement. You'll get an email that looks kind of like this, that says the student has completed the item, the supervision agreement, and then it's ready for your approval. The quirks with this form we've discovered is that right when the student goes into Exact and clicks on supervision agreement, open up this form and create this form, right at that moment, before they even type anything in there, the email gets sent to the site supervisor and field instructor, basically saying, this form is open now. So we highly recommend communication between the student and field instructor so that you know exactly when that email comes to you, because it may take some time, of course, for you and the student to go through the form, and then you'll need to be able to go back to like August 15th at 2 o'clock to find this email. I know it's not the most convenient, but that's what we have for now. And ideally speaking, you know, if you're able to actually sit in front of a computer during supervision with your student, actually do it together, that's really how it should happen, because the form does contain a bunch of questions about protocol, like who do I contact if I'm sick? Do you prefer texting or a phone call? What does my schedule look like? Who do I see if there's an emergency? What if you're on vacation? Who do I talk to? All of these kinds of questions that it's really, the student's really not going to be able to fill it out by themselves. It really should be a tool for the communication between both of you so that we have it all documented and in one place so the student is set up to succeed in their field placement. And then signatures are required. It looks like that at the bottom. Well, your signature will look much better than the line we have there. But that is just something to keep in mind. It is something that requires a signature and final approval. Okay, and field hours, our timesheet. So these are the required minimum number of hours. So basically everybody except our BSW juniors, they start off with just 80 hours total for that semester. And then senior year for BSWs, and then our generalist and specialist students is 225 per semester minimum. There are, in some cases, some programs and sites and students who choose to do a field placement for more credits. Instead of a regular 3 credit placement, they could do 4 or 5 credits and therefore do more hours for each additional credit. But for the most part, these are the hours. And remember, this is minimum, which means you may need to do more hours in order to achieve competency. It's not unusual. It's actually more the norm to do a few more hours. I think when we looked at the numbers, I think Robin said it was something like 240 something hours was more typical, because we really want to make sure if you're able to do 5 or 10 extra hours to really show and demonstrate your competency in all of the areas, maybe something that you weren't working on so much during that semester, that's really ideal. And then we do have the self-care buddy program. We can do 1 hour of self-care per week because it's very much a part of our important practice as social workers. And we'll go into that more in field integration seminar.
And Amy, if I may add,
Yes,
for the 4
yes,
and 5 credit before, I just want to emphasize, or our field office wants to emphasize that that's something that has to be approved by the field office and your academic advisor. So if that's
yeah.
something that you have priorly discussed with your academic advisor, then you're aware of that. Otherwise, everyone is at the minimum 3 credits.
Yes, definitely. It happens at registration, and has to be planned and agreed upon. Thanks, Wendy. The timesheet, again, link-based, it looks like this. Make sure that we're looking for that and have a discussion, because your field instructor may want to get them every week, like every Friday, send me your timesheet, or they're like, too many emails, send me it every other Friday. Whatever method you agree on, please do it that way. That way we're not getting anything lost. And students, when you log your hours, please utilize the drop down and the note section. So there's a drop down thing that you can choose whether the hours were done in FIS or training or supervision, direct client contact. And then also there's a small note section. Use that, say what you did as a reminder, because often your instructors are very busy and they're running around doing their thing. So they want to be reminded like, oh, you worked 20 hours this week, or what did you do? Or you only worked 10, why is that? Like, so use that note section so that they can see what you did and refer to it that way instead of having to send it back to you or email you and all that good stuff. Okay. Learning portfolio. Just 3 learning objectives at the top of the semester and then midterm and final. We've talked about this a few times. And remember, the goal is your students learning. It's really about the student achieving competency. Student is a student, not just there to clock some volunteer hours. So this tool is very helpful in that sense as we measure our progress towards competency, and make sure you're using the activities box or the note box to document what's happening. Field instructors and site supervisors, there's also a place for you to add comments. You're welcome to use that. Or if you're just giving them feedback in supervision verbally, that's fine too. Remember that this learning portfolio, especially the one at the end of the semester, at the end of their placement, it becomes a permanent document in the student's educational record. Like, they will hold on to this. Often when students apply to grad school, they want, the grad school asks for a copy of their final field evaluation. So the comments you put in there, keep that in mind, because those may be read by another university somewhere else if the student's applying somewhere else. So just something important to keep in mind. Again, link-based, to get an email looking something like that. There is a sign-off process. The most common mistake we see with site supervisors and field instructors is they'll go through the competencies and the comments, they'll sign off and hit submit. It looks like this top one here, hit submit, and then they think they're done. They close the window or they walk away, they open up something else and start working on the computer. Don't forget about the grading page, even the site supervisors. This page, which with those 6 categories, will pop up. So make sure that you're not walking away because you're not done after you sign. You still need to do the grading. Then when you're done with the grading, you hit submit, it'll go to the next person. When the site supervisor is done with grading, it goes to the field instructor. When the field instructor is done with evaluating and grading, then it comes to us as field coordinators. So it must go through all those steps, just like a piece of paper. One person can hold on to it at a time. So sometimes a student will go in and they're like, I sent in my objectives 4 weeks ago, but I'm not able to do my midterm yet. That's because somebody is still holding on to the document, whether it's with the site supervisor, field instructor, or field coordinator. So make sure we're doing all those steps, and then we'll send it off to the right person. Okay. And then the workflow, this is kind of what it looks like. We just explained it. It's a workflow process. It has to go through each person before the student can touch it again. So if field instructors, you think, I thought I was done, the student says, I can't get to it, double check the most recent email that you have in regards to, like, whether it's midterm or objectives. Click on it, see if it's stuck on maybe the grading page or something like that. Make sure it's not with you, and then we can help get it back to the student so they can work on it. All right. Slot requests, Wendy.
Yes, slot requests. So thank you in advance to our field instructors and site supervisors. Amy and I are going to be screening our incoming juniors this fall semester for them to be placed and start their first semester of their BSW field experience in the spring. So please keep an eye out for a slot request from us sometime in September. We'll get a sense of who has room to take on a BSW student to start in the spring. Filling out the slot request doesn't necessarily mean that you are 100% committed. It just gives us a really good sense of how many slots we have available, because we're going to have students kind of rank them, create a wish list, and kind of tell us what their interests are. And then we go based on the options that we have available for the students. So please keep an eye out for that. We definitely will be looking out for collaborating with you again and overlapping BSW students with the students that you may currently have. And those students would be starting sometime in February. Okay. Required disclosures related to field. So we have a responsibility to inform our students. This is part of our affiliation agreements that we have with the agencies, that students have to comply with the affiliates or field sites policies and procedures and abide by all applicable laws while at or within the affiliates facilities or while at their field site for their field experience. This includes any federal and state laws and statutes and regulations that the agency has to abide. So by being a field student at that site, you are under that umbrella of the policies that the agency has to follow, and therefore you have to follow as a student. That may include as well FERPA if you're in a DOE placement, or anything related to education and the Family Education Right and Privacy Act. Or HIPAA if you're in a health facility or in mental health services, making sure that you are very much informed or what the HIPAA Accountability Act is about, what the policies are, and what your duties and responsibilities are as a field student. Any other applicable laws that that agency might have to follow based on their accreditation bodies or agencies, and any protocols or procedures you have to you default to that agency's policies with regards to client services and whatever protocols they have to follow about confidentiality, privacy, whatever it may be. So just a reminder to make sure that you know that you have that responsibility, and we have responsibility to let you know as well. So next slide. Other disclosures regarding field education. Remember that any and all medical records created by students, so that's you as the student, in the course of the clinical experiences shall be exclusive property of the affiliate. So any case notes, any files, any documentation related to client and patient services are the property of that agency, and you have to follow their policies and protocols. Remember that the patient and client care is that of the affiliate. They're the agency's clients, the field site clients. You're there to learn, to be a student, to kind of see what social work looks like in practice. But at the end of the day, the responsibility is of the agencies for liability reasons as well. The university or our Department of Social Work does cover professional liability insurance for students while they're at their field placement. So that's fine. And then the agency has their own liability insurance that we've already kind of vetted through our affiliation agreements as well for their employees and staff. Remember that in addition to the liability insurance, professional liability insurance that we cover, students are also required to have health insurance as well for anything that's not related to your practice, is more about your well-being. So if you haven't, it's something that a good practice to have health insurance, whether you get it through the university or through your private insurance or public insurance while you're at your field placement in case of any emergencies. You'll need to have that. You're also responsible for completing any orientation requirements that the agencies have. For those sites who might have uniforms or any type of other identification t-shirts or shirts or whatever may be that might be required that the agency doesn't cover, you would be responsible for that. Maybe hospitals have some sort of dress code that they need to follow. Wear and displaying a student badge along with other ID when required, if the agency does require it. Arranging for your own transportation, so making sure that you to and from your site, any home visits or anything that you're doing along with site colleagues, or any outreach that you're doing that you're needing to provide your own transportation. The agency is not responsible for that. And then any emergency care, right? So if you ever, in case of emergency, you need an ambulance or something that you'll need to care for or have care, that you're responsible and not the agency's responsibility to cover that. Okay. And then another helpful resource, field education website. So on our website, we have a lot of this information, our field calendar, we have the learning competencies and behaviors document, we have some supervision tools that you're, as field instructors, you can take a look at that. As well, our manual, our field manual is there. That's an excellent resource to consult if you have questions about any policies regarding to field. Okay, so this is the site. Please make sure to visit that. And then for our field faculty, we also have continuing education webinars. Some of those webinars may or may not have continuing education credit that you can sign up for. So please make sure to sign up for our mailing list and visit our website for any exciting new webinars that are coming up this year. Students are welcome to also join. This is for the community, but especially for our field instructors who are looking for continuing education hours for their licensure requirements. This is a great benefit that our school has for you as field instructors. Okay.
And I'll just add to that, Wendy, that sometimes the topics are something related to your field site, students. So if you're interested in attending one of the webinars and counting it towards your field hours, have that discussion with your field instructor or site supervisor to get approval for that. It would be up to them.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Amy.
If you have any questions, contact us directly. Yeah, sorry, Wendy. Just this is recording, so yeah. This is our contact information. You know where to find us. We are all available virtually. You can click the link right here for our contact information on our website. Our office hour calendars are also linked on our website, so please schedule to meet with any of us if you need anything. This goes for field faculty, instructors, site supervisors, students, anybody. We just want to make sure everybody has a great, well-rounded and fun field experience.
Yes.
All
Definitely.
right.
With that,
Good.
mahalo everyone. Thank you for taking the time to view this orientation. If you have any questions, please reach out to us anytime. We're here and ready, set, go. Fall semester. Take care. Bye.
Yay.